I mean, granted, this is Stephen King, so could have been worse, I guess. Now, this is produced by Sean Levy, who did Stranger Things, and at times with the horror element, that is kind of what this can feel like at points, and it is very tastefully done. The strongest element of this movie is the build-up and the psychological horror aspect. This isn't a movie with a ton of blood or gore or shock value. It's all very tastefully done, which is refreshing. And the psychological horror aspect is also done very well. There's a lot of tricking the audience and trying to confuse them as to what's real, what's not real, and the build-up and tension of the scares are nice. There's some really creepy imagery, but that's about it. On a story and character level, it's not that great. The characters are all pretty thin, and the story doesn't really have anything about it that stands out. There's a ton of other horror movies that are very similar to this and were done much better. Poltergeist, Lights Out, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It just feels like a cheaper version of those. And I'm wondering how is that Sean Levy, who did Stranger Things, which is fantastic and does all this really well in that show, didn't do it very well in this. It just felt kind of cheap. And it's frustrating because it had a really nice setup. It starts out with this guy who is accused of murdering his family, and he claims it was this creature that nobody else believes exists. Okay, great setup, but we don't follow that character. He's gone 20 minutes in. He's just there to be the exposition mouthpiece, and the rest of the film is spent with these other characters, and none of them are interesting. And I don't know if that's because of the way Stephen King wrote them in the original story, or if it's just because the movie is short. Like, this movie's an hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer, but I don't know if it was because of that, and I don't know if a longer runtime would have improved this and given more time to make the characters more interesting, or if no matter what, they just would have been boring. I don't know. But frankly, I did not care about what was going to happen to these characters. But I will say this, at least the ending is satisfying. I mean, that is a huge problem with Stephen King, is he usually does not know how to end his stories. But at least this time, the ending was good. And that's not just a fault of Stephen King. There's a lot of other horror movies that I've seen where there's really good build-up and then the end really screws it up. That didn't happen this time. It was a pretty satisfying ending. But the big frustration with the film, though, is it's not subtle. It's very clear that the monster is a metaphor for the main character's grief and trauma. It's very heavy-handed, and the ending is also very clear-cut. Now, this is one time I think that maybe leaving the ending open to several different interpretations would have made it stronger. But no, the writers very much want you to interpret it only one way. It's very obvious what they're saying, and the way they do it, frankly, feels a little bit condescending. This was originally supposed to go straight to Hulu, but Stephen King kind of threw a tantrum over that when he found out, and he's like, no, you will release this to theaters. You will release this to theaters. I will not let you make the movie, but dude, it's not that great of a movie. It's not that great of a story. Dropping it to Hulu, I think, would have been the right decision here. They really should have just done that. It's not that great. But if you like this type of horror movie where it kind of plays with what's in the dark and there's some good psychological horror and creepy imagery, you'll probably enjoy it, but don't rush out to see it. Just wait for streaming. This is going to be one of the movies where I look back on my end-of-year list and I'm going to go, oh yeah, I saw that movie, didn't I? It's pretty forgettable. So wait for Halloween time, wait for it to drop on streaming if you like this kind of movie. For me, it gets a C+, a 6.5 out of 10, and a 2.5 out of 5 stars.